All right. Welcome to the Pig Show, guys. It's episode number 8, and I am excited to have Harstem joining me to talk about StarCraft. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing great, Pig. I'm glad to be on the PiGShow.
So, for anyone who's new to the show, and for you as well, Harstem, basically this show is about us just talking about all sorts of different things to try and sometimes learn about StarCraft, sometimes talk about balance. Sometimes we get to just try and get to know you guys as pro gamers better, but also just, I don't know, have some good conversations that hopefully enrich our lives. And I think there's no better time than right now, because everybody's locked in their houses. So what's going on in the Netherlands? Like, is everything shut down? What's happening?
I mean, supermarkets and stuff are open. I actually haven't been outside in 2 days now, so I'm not sure what the... Like, I throw away some trash every now and then, you know? I need to walk 10 meters outside of my house. There's a trash can really close. I live at the ultimate location. There's a gym within like 5 minutes of walking. There's a supermarket within 3 minutes of walking. And then there's a trash, like, what you call it? The big trash cans that go underground, where I can get rid of all my trash. It's like literally 25 meters, maybe even just 22 or 23. So in theory, I never need to leave the house, but practice doesn't really work out. But in theory, I'm golden, you know. But yeah, now gym is closed, but the trash and the supermarket is still open. So those are my 2 trips a day.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a weird time, because I feel like for people who can work from home already, it's kind of like a gift, a little bit here, right? Where we're kind of just like, hey, we can kind of do our normal thing, focus more on, you were saying just before we went live, eating healthier, sleeping better, not setting alarms, let ourselves wake up at the right time, hit your stream, hit your practice, get some custom games going. It's kind of funny because, like, I see what I guess I could only describe as the normies of the world, and some of them are like screeching. They're like, I'm so bored, I can't go outside that much, like I'm losing my mind. And for me, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's a little different, but overall, I'm just playing video games a bit more often. It's like there hasn't really been that much disruption, though. Australia's not as locked down as you guys are just yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit less social contact. Like I don't really meet with anyone right now, except my girlfriend.
And
so
you guys,
I guess that kind of sucks. But
you guys both live in the same town?
No, she lives pretty far from me, actually. Like 3 hours, good 3 hours away. By train.
Okay.
It's also a dangerous path to take these days. Trains are, you don't want to enter those, you know, filled with germs and bacteria.
Yeah, dude, I think that's like, were you always careful about this stuff? Because it's funny, because like Dario has been insanely careful for a long time about trying not to get sick, and I know some people have been really into this, and I've always been like the dirtiest person. Like, you know, the things you hold on the train or the tram or the subway or whatever, I just hold that thing, then I like scratch my face. Like I normally am completely, I just don't pay attention to that sort of hygiene at all.
Yeah, same. I always thought that gave me some extra resistance, you know.
Exactly, right? What doesn't kill you, you know? It's like, you know, when I have a kid, I'm going to like sit them outside in the garden, and I'm going to be like, eat some dirt. Like, go, eat the dirt, you know?
Build some resistance, you little prick. Yeah, it's kind of how I feel as well. Like how I always felt. But now I'm very careful. I don't want to catch it and then give it to like someone that I think is cool, you know?
Yeah. Especially like parents and grandparents, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't meet with my parents or grandparents now, but yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm surviving. I'm practically a superhuman, but these other guys, like, they might struggle a bit. So I just don't want to accidentally kill someone. Like, I feel real bad.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's it, right? Like, some people are like, oh, I'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's like, it's not really about us being fine. I don't think anyone our age, unless they already have pre-existing health conditions, cares. It's just like, we just want to not kill our grandparents and friends and stuff like that, and mess up people who are immunocompromised, right? So it's just about kind of respecting society as much as we kind of can.
And I mean, it's also kind of dangerous for us, no? Like, I'm not quite sure about the stats, but I'm sure there's a somewhat of a chance that, you know,
Yeah,
stuff becomes bad.
probably like similar to the flu, I think. So it's like 1 in 1,000 or something, if even. But it's
Okay.
still, that can happen, man. Like, you can
Yeah.
still have complications. You can still get pneumonia. And if you don't realize you've got pneumonia, that can get really bad very quickly if you don't get on the medication for that. So did you see the coronavirus challenge, by the way? Because, we talk about boosting the immune system and how we're people who normally don't care about this, but we've both started to try and isolate ourselves, be more hygienic, be clean. We don't want to spread it. But I saw a video yesterday of a girl on a plane recording herself licking the toilet seat as a coronavirus challenge.
That's real nice. A form of natural selection. The thing that bothers me with those people is that they might give it to people that actually might be in trouble. I assume this is a girl that is not above 22.
I would hope so.
That you have enough brain cells past that. But yeah.
Well, it's like how drink driving. I think drink driving, everybody should go drink driving as long as you're in a field away from any other people. Like if you want to crash into a tree drunk, like it's fine. Just go do it. Away from anybody else. Right? It's kind of the same thing. Just don't fuck with other people, man.
Yeah, give them a part of the country. Australia is big enough.
Exactly.
We have our own part of the country we should give to them. Most of them are there already. You put all the people who like their gossip shows, the Love Islands, the Temptation Islands, the drunk driving, the cheating. We all put them in one.
The Jersey Shore of the Netherlands.
Yeah, and we call that Limburg, and we don't touch it. There's three Dutch guys in your chat who are laughing, and maybe one of them is from Limburg. Like, oh, dang it.
Well, this is like I always appreciate that when someone is confident enough to make jokes that they know them and at most 2 other people will laugh at and will be lost on everybody else. It's like every time I'm casting Euthermal and I make a slip slap slop joke, which is the dumbest joke ever, and I know Maynard and like one other Australian watching are the only people who will get it, because when we're kids, everyone in Australia gets skin cancer because we're Europeans who are living somewhere we should not live, all the white people in Australia, right? So in school, they're always like, slip, slap, slop. You got to put the sunscreen on, slip it, slap it, slop it. And for some reason, because Mark's last name is Schlappy, I think it's funny to say slip, slap, slop. And I've said this on like 15 Premiere broadcasts at this point. And I know there's like one guy in chat who's like, huh. And that's like it. And I still keep saying it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like a mental defect I have or something, but
I'm doing it for yeah.
I'm doing it for myself, I guess. Hopefully the couple of Dutchies watching are having a good time. But awesome, man. So kind of lockdown, you said you were sleeping and letting yourself naturally wake up. Actually, that's something which is cool. I've started doing that a bit more. I actually was thinking about this recently, and I think it was can't remember who I was talking to. Maybe I was talking to TLO when we had him on, but I started trying to wake up just naturally every morning when I can, and I feel like it's like a different mode of waking up, right? Where you just feel way better. And I've talked to a lot of pro gamers about sleep and how important it is. Do you think like you're kind of in a better mode when you're sleeping like 9 hours a night, 8 hours a night, or are you one of these crazy pros that sleeps like 4 hours?
No, you can't. I can't do that 4 hours. Maybe when I was younger, I could function a little bit, but now it feels like if anything less than 8, it's over. The day might as well not happen. It's no use playing. The MMR drops are usually quite big on those days as well. So I always try to sleep like 8 hours, but I don't know. Naturally, waking up just feels good. Sometimes I actually wake up before I thought I would. Sometimes after, and sometimes way after. And those are the days that my stream doesn't start until 2 instead of 12.
Sometimes it's a good stream though, right? Like you've got that more energy about you, you're feeling gathered.
Yeah, I don't know. Like anything, between 8 and 9 hours is perfect. More than 9 hours, like I feel slow as well. There's a sweet spot that I kind of need to hit. But yeah, I don't know. It's just how I've been doing it. Maybe it's a bit of lack of discipline that I'm not putting the alarm anymore. But I don't know.
I think it's actually optimal. I think it's like a way better way to wake up. And the thing is, like, I don't know about you, but for me, if I'm giving myself enough rest and exercise, and I didn't eat like, a shitload of McDonald's or ice cream the night before or something, like I will naturally wake up at the right time. So it's kind of like a feedback loop where it's like, oh, if I'm actually taking care of myself, I will wake up at the right time. But
Right,
when
you need
other
less sleep
things,
as well, right? If you don't drink before bed, if you don't like alcohol, that is, and like if you don't eat crap, like I think you need a little less sleep. In my head, at least, I always feel like
yeah,
if I drank a bit or if I ate like an idiot, then it always comes back at night. I feel like I need
yeah.
like an hour extra or something. Not sure how that works.
The point of diminishing returns with alcohol, right? It's like there's like a beer, it's like that fifth beer or something, or that sixth beer, where it's like every one is like exponentially more just crappy sleep. I'm waking up in the middle of the night, like where the hell is some water? And I just feel like out of it the next day. And I think what's cool about StarCraft is I think it's the immediate thing that tells you in such a clear way you're playing 5% worse, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you're actually 5% lower than your normal. Like, get dicked. Like you're a few seconds late on, getting that stalker in the wall against the Hellion run by, or, focusing the medevac before the Widowmine unloads, and suddenly 20 probes die, and you're like, okay, like, oof.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's true. You notice it very quickly, but then sometimes you have those days where even though you slept crappy, that you still win a lot. So it might just be that you get really lucky in the games, but sometimes it feels like to affect me less for some reason. I'm not sure how it works. Like some days I feel okay, others I don't, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's like
The
a
last
weird
few
thing.
days I've been feeling all right.
Do you
Sleeping well, and
do you practice when you first get home from events? Like, do you play that day, or do you normally take like a day or two off?
it depends a bit what time. I kind of like playing at least 2-3 games to stay in the mode. I once heard a fact that I believe if musicians don't play their instrument even for as short as 24 hours, they lose a bit of mechanical skill in their instrument.
Oh, really?
So I figured that even if I take a break, I still play 2-3 games a day just to keep my mechanical skill up there.
That's actually really cool. I'd never heard that. I like that idea because 2 or 3 games is it's nothing, right? It's like a drop in
Yeah,
the
it's not enough
ocean.
to get you tilted even. I need 4 for that.
It's like the second or third rage queue in a row. That's where it really gets you,
Yeah.
right? Dude, speaking of rage, how's your ladder been? Are there the F Zerg or F Terran, or damn, these Terrans need to stop complaining? EMP is the radius of the sun now. Like, where's your mindset been recently?
I don't know. I struggle a bit with Terran, but not a lot of other tosses do. I dislike PvP, but I'm very good at it, I think. Or, well, very good. I think I'm good at it. But I think the matchup's just a bit dumb. I think it has been for a very, very long time now. But I mean, it's so difficult to say anything about balance, honestly. It felt like before IAM, PvZ was kind of tricky for me. And then the Glaive build kind of killed, just killed everyone, which also disappointed me a bit because I don't think the build is completely viable already now anymore. Like, all-ins are too good against it. It's holdable even if you don't all-in. So I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I'm lacking some diversity in PvZ, and I dislike
Yeah,
PvP. And PvT is my worst, but it's the matchup I enjoy practicing the most because it's pretty clear where mistakes are. Usually there's like it's a pretty Terran can be very greedy, right? Like, there's less gambling in PvT, I feel like, at least from the Protoss side. Like in
yeah,
PvZ, Zerg, if Zerg builds like 30 drones and you didn't attack them at a certain time without you really being able, like, you can't really reactively throw down 4 gates, the timing is just
yeah.
over. So I feel like PvZ it still feels a little bit more luck based, at least from the Protoss side, and PvT feels a little lot more solid. You can be a lot more solid as a Protoss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so I prefer
interesting.
practicing that. It's more fun to practice.
So, I mean, obviously PvP. Let's start with that one really quickly, just because this has been something I've been thinking about recently. Because there were a lot of, people reeing, after one-sided series at Katowice. It wasn't all bad. There were some great series and games, right? But with PvP, right, buildings outside the base. I mean, that really is something which we've seen reach its final form with people realizing how good Proxy Robo is, which is just a staple build in the meta. But we've got Proxy 3 gates, we've got just hiding a Stargate and going Phoenix, going Oracles. Proxy Oracle's very big at the moment as well. Like this all stems back from the Mothership Core, right?
Yeah, I think so. All the Mothership Core being gone, so you can't as safely expand anymore. I want to put a note there, though. I don't think the proxy Stargates are as big or are not as common in the meta, because right now the 3-gate or the like either proxy 3-gate or just regular 3-gate as a response to proxies are very common, and it's very difficult to hold big stalker counts if you open proxy Stargate. So that one kind of fell out, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back at some point. You know, they all kind of circle in and back. And
did you watch
like
Parting?
Said, the staple one is Proxy Robo. Parting Trap?
Yeah, did you watch Parting Trap?
I watched some of the games. I watched the... Can we spoiler?
Yeah, we can spoiler. It's been a few days.
Yeah, I watched the Cannon Rush game, which made me sad.
Yeah.
That Cannon Sword is really, really good. And Parting messed up his probe control.
If he got... Because both probes got surrounded, and if you got even one more cannon down there, like it's game over probably, right?
That spot is so sick, because usually the way cannon rushes work is that you need at least rings of cannons until you can hit the nexus, let alone be able to hit the probes. But here you only need 2 rings. So you have your initial cannon, and then the first ones you put on the high ground, which in theory should always be safe. They're gonna be able to hit and the nexus and probes, and the cannon on the low ground can already hit a gas, which is, there's no other map in the history of maps that has ever been able to do this that I can recall, in at least in Legacy and probably Heart of the Swarm as well. Like, it's absolutely insane the like how good that cannon rush is. It's also rather easy to scout, but even if you scout it, the response isn't super straightforward, because if the low ground cannon survives and the probe, at least the probe gets in the main and stays alive, you've lost the game. Like, you just can't win it.
Yeah, that's a real nasty one.
Yeah, it's absolutely mad to think about.
So that was, I mean, because that was a 3-2 for Trap in the end of that series. So, I mean, if Parting had microed that slightly better and kept those probes alive, that would have been, his series potentially there. So that was really big. It was interesting as well, though, because Parting actually he did some proxy Oracle, but he was like, just made it look like a normal build. So it was like very slow proxy Oracle. I think it was on Nightshade.
Like 3rd pylon or 4th pylon?
Yeah, like 3rd pylon, I think it was. Maybe even 4th, like, or like faked a pylon at home on the 3rd. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second.
You can fake the 4th at home.
Apologies, I left those alerts on. My bad. You can just like leave the 4th at home. Yeah, so it was like really delayed proxy oracles that were kind of surprising and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of this weird zone, right, where it's funny because I remember like speaking to Roddy, and he's like, people have finally figured out just pumping Immortals and Phoenix off one base is like the best way to play PvP. He's like, this is amazing, this is my meta, because this is what happened with, like, if you got Proxy Robo versus Robo 3-gate, you'd kind of both add a Stargate and build Phoenix. But there's also these greedy expands, where people are still doing like a single Sentry Stalker expand, which is like a dice roll as well, right?
I mean, the problem is that there's too many different builds. Like, nothing is safe. So I guess like the Stargate Robo, like the problem with that is that you expand so late that if the other person just proxies a regular pylon, like, you're in such a bad position. You're just down like 7-8 workers, which just means it's game over, And so much money is invested into a Stargate, which is almost always going to be useless against the expand build. Might be okay against adept expand builds, but against like even Stalker Sentry or just Sentry Stalker, I mean, you're in such a bad position because you get so much tech before the Nexus. You need to get a Stargate unit before the Nexus. Like, yeah, we're talking a Nexus that's delayed by almost a minute. It's really not playable, I think. And there's a lot of builds. Like, I think even with Phoenix or like Stargate Robo, if you play against like 3-gate, and they contain after the first 5 Stalkers, I think you're also kind of in trouble as the Phoenix Robo player. So yeah, then you already have 2 builds that kind of beat it. Against Proxy Robo, I think it might be good, but you have some wonky variation on Proxy Robo if they know it's Stargate. So it's like, it's all kind of in the air. In the end, the most important thing is to scout what tech is proxied on the other side of the map, and then you hope you had a good response, and maybe you can do something with what you have. Maybe you can't. It
rewards volatility at the moment as well, I feel. It's one of those ones where if you can be super flexible, like if I find myself playing someone who is trying to play like very just set intelligent reactions, I find it very easy to beat them in PvP right now. And obviously this is not pro level, but it's because I can always go, if I show them this, they will do this thing, and then I can counter it with this thing. It's like a very clear, like I can just make you do a logical response, not actually commit to it, either cancel or do a very minimal commitment, go into the counter to your counter, and I'm always ahead. Or like, I make it look like a proxy robo, but I just like defend and take a faster nexus, or, these fake pylons and things.
Yeah.
It's a weird spot right now. So, I mean, obviously I had this kind of off. Normally I do a lot more kind of personal talks and stuff on this show, but I was thinking about balance a lot and design, and Beastie obviously has very strong opinions. So we did a talk about it, and I hated the Mothership Core. Thought it was the dumbest unit ever. I loved using it as a Protoss player, and I was really happy they removed it, but he actually thinks they should bring it back because it's, it's more interesting than the shield battery. You get to choose where and how to use it. He thinks they should give shield battery as like kind of like a pylon overcharge ability that you can cast on a pylon. He thinks, has this idea that basically you bring back the Mothership Core, you just maybe lower the damage of the overcharge a little bit so it's not quite as powerful in terms of sudden damage output, but a bit more longer duration. And then you give it a shield battery ability as well. Same energy cost, but it basically turns a pylon into a shield battery for, 20 seconds or something. So you can choose, do I want to overcharge? Do I want a shield battery? Do I want to do a bit of this, bit of that? Gives a bit more decision making, and it's a bit more of like a powerful, exciting, overpowered almost unit, which is fun to use as a Protoss player. And it obviously does a lot to help PvP, where it defends Adept Shades, helps defend Oracle Dives, helps defend expansions very well. What do you think?
I mean, it probably would fix PvP to a certain extent. I think the problem with the overcharge is that it was simply too good defensively against Terran as well.
Yeah.
It kills build order variety by so much. I personally don't think it's a great idea to bring it back. But I mean, it's a bit of a trade-off of things, isn't it? Like, do you want interesting? The problem is that even if you make PvP go past the early game stage, you still charge Archon against charge Archon. Who really wants to watch that? So I honestly, like, people complain so much about Stalker Disruptor, but that meta was for me very fun to watch and a million times more fun to play.
I much prefer Stalker Disruptor meta as well. Like, yeah, watching, especially like if both players are pretty even and it's locked on 45 probes and you're like, wow, I got +1. And like the difference is like, well, one of them is making +2 and the other one's not. And they're both just vying for an engagement. And the +1 guy wants to fight, the +2 guy doesn't. It's like, it's such a weird sort of gameplay. I mean, there's like, I come to appreciate the details, right? One guy's got 3 immortals, the other one doesn't, right? He's better in like a long range slow fight. The other one's better with a flank and a surround. He wants to create some chaos, some backstabs. There's always details, right, that make it skill based, that make it interesting to the trained eye. Yeah, but is it as interesting though?
At the end of the day, if you're talking about Charge Archon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have more units and even upgrades. Like, unless you really mess up the fight, majority of the time you're just gonna win the game. Like, it's just simply how math works, Like, unless 3 Archons aren't firing, but there's just not a lot of control to do. And I thought the cool thing that I always liked was the comeback mechanic, especially against worse players with Stalker Disruptor. I could have 15 Stalkers and 1 or 2 Disruptors against 20 Stalkers and 6 Disruptors. But if my control was better, I would win that game. And I knew if I got into a position where I had 2 Disruptors, I would be able to win a game against a guy that's 500-600 MMR worse than me, but just had a good early game. In that case, early game just starts to matter a bit less, and you already fix a part of the problem. You don't fix the whole problem, but at least right now, there's probably builds in PvP which will allow you to survive everything. You should just be too far behind. Right now, like anyone, even 1,000 MMR below me, if they get 10 workers up ahead, like they know how to finish me, In Stalker Disruptor, that's not the case. They wouldn't be able to kill me because I could just wait till I get like 2-3 Disruptors on 2 base. I'd be down 20 probes. I don't give a crap. I'm gonna micro. I'm gonna win. Like, it's just how it was very nice to play. Like, way more comfortable to play against worse players. And I thought the high level games were always really exciting. Like, lots of run-bys. There was always action on the map.
Yeah.
And we actually saw late games as well, which I think it's cool when a matchup has a late game. Right now, PvP doesn't have a late game.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that late game, so a little bit little bit dirty there. So just chat's letting me know there's a little. That's fine. That'll do. Little production snafu on my end. And I'll keep an eye on the mic as well. Your mic cut out once there for half a second, but it should be fine. That's fine. So are you're using your desktop mic, right? Like your
What do you mean a desktop mic?
or you're using like a mounted
XLR?
mic. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
mean like a podcast mic or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's right. If that we can just swap to the headset mic if we need to, but it should be fine. Thanks, chat, for the heads up on that. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting this whole thing with PvP and it being a little bit weird like that. In terms of these changes, it's incredibly complex, right? It's not easy to balance or design StarCraft. Something I've come to the conclusion with recently, though, is I would like to see more kind of dangerous changes, mixing things up. I used to always think I want StarCraft to be like Brood War, where it settles into one meta with very small tweaks at most, right? And I want it to be the same sport where it's the same over many years, right? With very few changes. I've kind of changed my attitude on that recently, where for me, it's something about, there's two reasons. One, I like new content and I think it spices up the scene, keeps it fresh, keeps bringing players back. You know, it's like a new game. Each time you do a big balance change, you bring old things back, you change stuff, change the stats, you know, make things more viable. And I also think it's something where it's the best way to address these problems, because I think as players get better and better at understanding and taking advantage of things, you see problems magnify as everybody gets really good at abusing the same things within a matchup's design, right? Everybody finds a way to abuse proxy robos or proxy this, or to really go all in on certain gambles within a matchup. Are you someone who falls on the side of, no, like just small tweaks and we actually can get to a perfect balance or close to that? Or are you more on the, I call it the Nathaniel side of the argument, because he's been campaigning for a long time, of like just totally shake up the game after the end of year finals every year, massive changes, and take some chances and some risks?
I'm not sure. I mean, both have upsides, like you said. I liked mainly the idea of the stuff not being like super figured out. I think that's cool. I think I thrive in that environment as well. But on the other hand, I also really like the knowledge you can have in a matchup. You know, like just how much you can know, and how StarCraft sometimes feels a bit like chess, where a lot of the openings are kind of meshed out, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels cool to be able to have so much theory as well in a game.
It's like your history with a matchup, right? It's like, you know, your build practice from 3 years ago is still educating your game now today, right? But if the balance changes too much, that's not the case, where suddenly you're like, oh no, everything's different. That past knowledge isn't worth anything anymore.
Yeah, which, like I said, both have upsides. I think I would do better in an environment where stuff changes, because I'm not necessarily the strongest mechanical player, but I think I'm rather creative. I think I made a lot of builds over time. I'm quite good at like thinking of ideas and then putting those like you know Fighting Frog, right?
Yeah, he's a badass. I love him.
Yeah. So me and him, usually I come with an idea, and then we play, like, basically we go into a custom game together and we just play the same build against each other, and then at certain times you're like, all right, what do you have now? And then we tell each other, and then we see what is better, and then we do it again until we basically have like the perfect version of the build. But most of the time I come with the idea, and then together we work it out like that. We actually had some pretty cool stuff.
He's a very creative guy, Fighting Frog, actually. I've cast quite a few of his games over the years.
I'm not a fan of his creative strategies. I like how good he is at figuring out the optimal solution to my problems most of the time. But I know I talk with him as well about strategy, but sometimes he's pushing the buttons a bit big.
Prioritizing, trolling over maybe the most effective way to just stab your opponent, right? Sometimes it's like he wants to do a seven flip somersault over their back and then snap their neck or something, and it's like, maybe you should just punch the guy in the face.
I remember his counter to Broodlord for, it probably still is. He'd get like 7-8 prisms and just drop Archons on top of the Broodlord.
Well, what did we see?
Work a lot.
Well, was it Trap who was trying to do the offensive recall at BlizzCon, where he was trying to recall Archons on top when he got abducted by like Cyril's it was stats or Trap? It was like on
called?
Acropolis.
No.
He tried to do it there, and it
Was
didn't
it
work.
Acropolis? No, it wasn't.
He definitely did it on Acropolis, but he got pulled over the dead space, so the Archons teleported kind of only a few on the Broodlords, some into the main base of the Zerg. It was Cyril, I think it was Trap. Cyril Trap, BlizzCon, I'm trying to remember.
No, it was Acropolis, you're right. I had a different map in mind when you mentioned Acropolis. It definitely was. You're right.
Yeah. And that's kind of the same thing, right? But obviously, like unloading on top of them, it's kind of like when you would see the Drilling Claw Widowmine Doom drop on the Broodlords, and you're like, that's so sick. And it's like, you see it, and like a fungal lands on the Medivacs, and the Corruptors kill them all, and one Widowmine gets out, and you're like, yeah, I mean, it's nice when it works, when there's like, if you can pull their screen somewhere else right at the moment where you boost in, that's cool, but a little bit too fancy there for sure. So you kind of obviously do that creative stuff. The Glaives build, you did a very similar build a long time ago, a year ago or something, year and a half ago. You did like a guide, right? And it was very similar to what Zest was showing at Katowice.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Zest made this himself. I showed this exact build to Parting before IAM. After I got kicked out, I was like, Parting, you got to see this build. Me and Mana at the bootcamp figured this out, the 4-gate Glaive. We were playing it slightly different because we still build a Dark Shrine after almost every single time. But yeah, I showed this exact build almost exactly to Parting. It was like you block the natural with 13 pylon, and then you play 4-gate Glaive, and then you can kind of transition into macro game. The only thing, the thing that Zest did that really impressed me, a few things that he changed. So I cared too much about my warp gate being delayed. So usually in PvZ, what you do is you delay your warp gate as to fake out the Stargate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I cared too much about that. Zest didn't give a crap. He started warp gate the moment Cybercore finished. That made the build a lot better. Second thing is he found a way better transition. I was playing Charge Archon afterwards. He first went with a 11-12 blink Stalker push to deny a fort. That way you're immediately safe to Mutas, and you can keep putting pressure on the map, which is very good because you're already denying a lot of creep with the initial build, and it keeps pressure on your opponent. I was giving my opponents too much time a lot when I was transitioning to charge, like waiting for 6 gases to go up a lot of the time. It just didn't transition too nicely, but the way that Zest played was... So I pretty much had the build, except my warp gate was too late, which delayed my push by about 5 seconds. And I didn't have the follow-up figured out like he did. And also the Dark Shrine didn't add anything that was necessary majority of the time. So I think these were the mistakes. Zest did a lot smarter.
It's like that should be one of the side variations, right? That you do 1 in 5 games or something in a tournament, right? Like these, it shouldn't be the solid option, the DT follow-up. Interestingly, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was game 2 or game 3, but one of those games where Zest died to the Rogues All In the finals, he was being fancy and delaying the warp gate, and that was part of why he couldn't warp in to stop the Bane bust. Whereas it was like, oh, he could have warped in a Sentry and force fielded that out actually. So it was kind of this. On the other hand,
you kind of got to think like, why the hell would Rogue be Baneling busting someone that's supposed to be playing Oracle? If someone shows Warpgate first every single game, and they always go into Glaive with Warpgate first, and then they don't show Warpgate first, and every time they've done that, they go Stargate, why would you Baneling bust a guy that isn't going Warpgate first? Like, I think it just was a call by Rogue, who had this strategy no matter what the Warpgate was going to say. I think Sam actually played that well. I think the mind game there was good, and even though now it looks silly, he actually did a good job. Like strategically, that was a fine play, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, part of the reason we saw Cyril freak out and play much below his level in the last 2 games in that series is he couldn't get a read because nothing made sense that he saw, right? Like Zest was throwing so much misinformation out where he's like going to go with Stargate, sees the Overlord, and is like, I'll just delay my Stargate 20 seconds and build it at my natural so the Overlord doesn't see it. And Cyril starts freaking out and like misreacting. The previous game, he got confused as well, and it was just so late on his roaches for the Adepts coming across the map. So there was like all these weird little tricks with delaying the warp gate and then sometimes getting it on time, which Zest actually did. And I think that's so good to play, but I think Rogue is like not only the smartest player at the moment, but like I feel like he's nowhere near the mechanical level of like a Dark or a Serral at the moment, where it really feels like he just has a better understanding of how he can get like free wins. Like he can take these insane gambles, make a really hard read of what he thinks he can make his opponent do, or he knows his opponent's planning to do, and he's like, I'm happy to flip a coin here and just go all in on this thing. Like he was playing the same at BlizzCon as well, where with the Nidus Swarm host, where he was like, I got 3 roaches and 66 drones. It's time to build 10 swarm hosts and a Nidus, like a minute faster than anybody else would do it. And you're like, well, if this gets up, like you just win the game. That locust wave is too fast. And then sometimes he'd get hit by a timing and he's like, oh, I've got 4 Ravagers and 10 Lings out. And he just dies to like 2 Immortals and some Sentries. And you're like, oh, you're actually gambling really hard. And this is kind of the evolution we've seen of Rogue in the last 9 months, where I think he was not even joking when he said he wasn't practicing for quite a few months. And then he's just like, oh, Zerg's OP, and came back. And his games are disgusting. I look at the way Rogue's playing and I'm like, oh, you're such a smart guy, but you're also creating the worst games to watch, right? He's like the anti-fan favorite right now in my mind, because he's the guy who... Do you watch MMA at all? Do you watch fighting?
No.
Okay, there was like a really terrible fight the other week. And it's like there's certain people who become champions or very high-level fighters, and they just play like the safest or most boring, uninteractive style. They take no chances. And the fans get really annoyed because you see these uninteresting games. That's kind of like what Rogue's been giving us lately, where he's like, I either die to them punishing this or I get away with it and I like just destroy you one-sidedly where you don't have a chance because I'm too far ahead or I'm hitting with this insanely strong timing attack. I don't know when the last time we saw Rogue play a long back and forth game was. Like it
Probably
just...
against Neep, BlizzCon 2017.
Yeah.
That game on Mech Depot, he decided it wasn't for him anymore.
He's like, nah, okay, the Fist of Neeb, 199 army supply for Neeb. He's like, yep, nope, we're gonna kill Protoss before they get 200 army supply, man.
Wise decision. He could not be blamed for that.
Dude, so awesome. All right, so these are some thoughts on balance at the moment. You're kind of up in the air. I mean, I
obviously have strong feelings after I lose a game, but it's so difficult for me to guess. I don't have the full player spectrum either. I'm playing solely against Europeans, who, well, they don't happen to be the best. Like I think we have very, very good Europeans, but like the Korean Terrans are very different. The Korean Tosses are very different, and the Korean Zergs are way more aggressive than any European Zerg we have. So
yeah,
bar Vanya maybe. Like Vanya's pretty wild, but I mean all the other boys, like they're mainly macro players. So it's very difficult for me to judge on the players that I have. If I watch Korean games, I don't understand a lot of stuff majority of the time. So once again, it's kind of hard to start judging on balance then.
So diplomatic, Harstem. I want you to come out and just be like, Zerg's bullshit, fuck Banelings, you know. But no, it's cool to see.
I dislike Banelings. Don't get me wrong.
Get rid of that 5 hit point. That 5 hit point. Let them die to Storm just before they connect. Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, think they should be able to be dropped from Overlords, for example. Some real clowns though. Giving vision all the time. No, the only thing that I wouldn't mind seeing change is Queens having 1 less range or something like that. These guys have so much range. And they're so powerful. I
mean, I got a bit of kickback because I actually do think we need a little bit of a nerf for Zerg right now. I've got a bit of kickback for that, but I stick by it. And I do think that the 2 things I would love to see that are making comebacks not as possible against Zerg, and they're also limiting interaction, is the Queen range. I would like to see 1 less anti-air range on the Queen. And this is something, I was talking to Beastie about this a lot and he was agreeing. And the other one is the creep vision, where the easiest change on it that we would like to see is creep tumor vision, other than the active tumors at the front, is down to like 10%, 20%. So you can just see a little thing around it, even just that to limit that vision. I'm like, I think at the moment, there's a problem where if Zerg gets enough creep out, like comebacks don't happen because they're just not surprised by anything, right? Like these Zealot run-bys are spotted a mile away. The War Prism is spotted a mile away. You've already got Zerglings and Overlords on the edges of the map. And I think even just that...
Overlord speed. With Overlord speed, you have Overlords everywhere as well. So yeah, I think Zerg, and most of the time they're the racing control, right?
I would say so. I mean, the thing is, don't get me wrong, Zerg might need buffs in other areas. If we like nerf Queen range, we nerf creep vision, and we like reduce a bunch of other things. Zerg is weird in Legacy in that they don't have you remember they used to outnumber Protoss in a lot more, and Zerg, Terran a lot in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty in terms of unit numbers. But like Banelings were weaker and Ravagers didn't exist. Whereas like Zerg now has these trigger button responses to stop any attack that comes their way. Oh, turn 8 Roaches into Ravagers, your army is infinitely better defensively, right? Like, it's so hard for Protoss or Terran to push through those 8 Ravagers. Banelings can morph reactively as well. And, they still have that explosive power where if they get away with just going 20, 30 drones at once in a window, they can still get to that overwhelming numbers of Zerg. But in the build-up stages, I think when you're tied neck and neck, we see Zerg very tied in numbers and having to play a very efficient, like really having to know and counter what the opponent's doing. And at the moment, I think they have all the information to do that. So I'm not saying Zerg is easy. I don't want to like massively nerf every Zerg player. I want like just some small but impactful changes, like knock one range off the Queen anti-air, knock the creep vision down a bit. You're still going to see units moving across creep. You're just not going to see them quite as far away, and you're not going to see exactly what the army looks like. You'll just see like bits of it appearing and disappearing from your vision, right? So I personally think I'd love to see a risky change like this, just because there are too many games where if the Zerg gets ahead a little bit, and like we've seen Rogue do many times, they're too in control and there's not enough comeback mechanics against them.
Yeah. You speaking for me right now, Pig. I'm a big fan. like you said, I mean, if balance wise, then it becomes so bad. You can just buff the numbers on units, but I think these are more so design changes than anything else, right? Especially the creep one. It's like you want Zerg to have a little less vision, and if that results into them losing a lot more games, then you can always buff them in another area. I think that's kind of how you want to change a lot of things in general. A lot of the time people really only care about numbers, which I think most of the time is the incorrect way. Like you kind of want to take away something that's unfun, and then hopefully the balance doesn't change very much. And then if it does, then you buff something else.
I think that would be just such a pleasant change. And I mean, there's a lot of different things to do and stuff. And I just want to see the team follow that approach, that design approach, and something Beastie, his thoughts, even though he's got many thoughts, and it's this idea of
many thoughts,
take away unfound things, and then
Beastie had lots of thoughts.
He literally has 3 half-hour to 40-minute videos talking about some cool idea changes he has for each race, but he's very upfront about, he knows if you put these all in the game right now, it'd be broken in so many ways and ridiculous, right? But I like that out-of-the-box thinking. I think that the thing is just, the Queen is, for instance, really very powerful against Oracles and Banshees, right, and like making it so hard for them to dance around bases. Now, the one thing that would worry me about that change is like the BCs. Having one less range makes it very hard to kite BCs. There's things that need to be figured out. But I think the idea of like just let those Oracles and Banshees have a bit more of an interactive dance, where if there's 2 Queens in a base, you can still kind of dance around them and hopefully find an opening, without suddenly being deep in the orange and just having to retreat and get out of there. I think the Warp Prism range got picked up, right? So that was part of the reason why the Queens got their range buffed, is Auto Turret Harass and Archon Drop Harass was triggering Zerg super hard. And Auto Turret doesn't cast as far away now. The Raven's got to be right on top. Archons can't pick up from as far away. The way it is at the moment, I don't know.
They're dead. The Prism builds, no?
Like the Archon ones?
All the Prism builds are dead. When's the last time you've seen a proper DT drop? It's like once in 10, maybe? You get a Glaive build, but it's not really a Prism build. It's like it's more being used as a reinforcement point rather than a micro thing. There's no real micro builds anymore. The only time you really see it in use is when defending road challenge and you're juggling immortals. But drop.
I mean, I guess like Parting's Immortal Sentry push. Like he does, his 4 or 5 gate Immortal Sentry with 1 Immortal, 1 Prism.
3 gas?
No, +1. No, like much faster. Like Robo first.
Yeah. But there the range doesn't matter too much.
In PvZ, yeah. So he's using force fields more because he gets like 3 or 4 sentries and then just like mostly zealots with it. He's got like maybe 1 stalker, 1 immortal. It does a bit of micro with it, but it's still
it fake third. The build you're talking about.
He doesn't even fake a third. He just goes straight across the map and then
I know it.
Yeah, he did it to like Scarlet in the Katowice qualifiers and Rogue a few times and won almost every game with it. It's very just a micro in your face timing attack. So okay, cool. I think this is an interesting discussion. I think we kind of agree on that. I don't want to just drone on and on about balance because I think it's something which it can be interesting, but I don't really have any new thoughts. I'd actually like to talk to you a little bit more and steer us in a very different direction and talk about kind of getting into StarCraft way back. So we're kind of doing, I guess, this podcast back to front, you know, get the Harstem life story a little bit. But I want you to just give me like a tidbit. Did you grow up gaming a lot, or did you just kind of get into it when StarCraft 2 came out? Like, how'd you get into SC2?
Well, I played Warcraft 3 before, but my parents always were pretty strict with rules when it came to computers, stuff like that. So I think until very late, I wasn't allowed to play more than 45 minutes a day. Like,
oh, really? Wow.
Maybe 14 or 13. And then when they weren't around, I tried to break that rule a little bit. A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I was always a big fan of gaming, yeah. Like, I liked that. I grew up playing, like, at my cousin's house. Like, I'd play FIFA, like, 98, I think, or 99.
So this is why you're such a Chad Harstem. You know, some pro gamers out there, you know, you're like, this guy has played games from when he was born. You know, I look at like a Cyril. I'm like, Cyril has been, you know, born with the PC. They're like symbiotic life form. You're playing the fucking sports ball game on the video game.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, I played a lot of football, like actual football as well. So football was just the only game that kind of appealed to me. And then sometime, like, I remembered it, but it's the moment that changed my life. I was in my cousin's house, and he was like, I got this new game. And it's really good. Like, I don't care. Like, we're gonna play FIFA. It's like, no. You gotta listen to me. It's like, this game is really good. I like who cares? Like, mate, we gotta play football right about now. It's like, all right, we play one game of FIFA, and then we play one game of this. If you don't like it, I'm never gonna mention it again. I'm like, just to get him to, you know, stop whining. I'm like, all right, we'll play FIFA, then we'll play whatever crap you have. And he showed me a game of Warcraft 3 where he played against the AI. And I think he played human, and he was playing against a Tauren chieftain. I'll never forget this. And the thing that caught my attention so much was that the Tauren chieftain could come back after it died, but only once it reached level 6. Like this, like it. I don't know. I can't describe the feeling I had. And I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I want to come back with one guy, you know. So like, I came home, and the first time I was like, Mom, I want to get Warcraft 3. You know? She's like, what's that? Like, it's a game. It's a war game. I'm like, yeah, but there's no violence in there. She's like, get Warcraft 3. I think it took a while, maybe like 3-4 months. Get Warcraft 3, played the campaign, stuff like that. And after all, like, I didn't care at all about other stuff. And after a while, I started playing online. And that's kind of started my roles. Like,
sorry, we got some audio issues coming through. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to change the server really quickly on our voice call. And we are back. Test. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, sure.
All right, I think that should be better. Sorry. So you got Warcraft. You begged your mom for it. Got after a few months. Finally hopped on 1v1 after the campaign.
No, I mainly played 2-on-2 with one of my real life friends. We played Reign of Chaos, by the way, not Frozen Throne.
Oh yeah.
Until like 2009, I played Reign of Chaos.
No. You're like Hitman.
2008. Played Reign of Chaos. But who gives a crap about Frozen Throne?
Oh my god! Wait! Does that mean like they did patch it with Frozen Throne to make it similar unit costs and stuff, right? So it was.
I have no clue, mate.
I think they did because there was a big patch because before that, units were like more expensive and more supply heavy. Like original Reign of Chaos was like very, like you would have so few units, like even less than in current Warcraft 3. Sorry.
Nice. And then me and my friend, we played 2-on-2 together. I'd play Undead, and he'd play Orc, and I'd play Mass Fiends, and he'd play Shamans, Witch Doctors into Taurens later on. That was the whole strategy. Like, we didn't know about Dispel or items or any, we did that every single game, and we got to rank 450 on the 2-on-2 ladder, just spamming that strategy. And then I went back to my cousin's house one time, and we'd always play on LAN with each other there as well. And like a neighborhood kid, like he watched me play, and he was like, man, your micro's pretty good. I'm like, what's micro? Like, you know, you pull your units back and stuff. I'm like, yeah, of course, I don't want them to die, you know? So I had no clue about it. I was just, you know, it made sense to me to make sure they survived. I think at that point I probably played undead and orc at the same time. And then eventually, like after I spoke a bit with that guy, and he was like, "Man, you should try Frozen Throne. Like there's people like playing this game for money." I was like, "For money?" It's like, "Hey, that sounds great." So I think 3 months later, I buy Frozen Throne, and like I started watching replay stuff like that. I signed up for like the ESL Amateur series back in the day.
Damn.
My idea was like I wanted to become an orc, so my account name was Training Orc, but that was already taken. So I became Training Orc 111 on the ESL Amateur series. I was last place. I didn't win a single match. I lost absolutely everything. But I was really into it. Yeah, I love the competition, everything. And then one time, another big point. I think I was 14, and there was the screening of Beyond the Game. You remember the movie? With
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this movie got released, and there was the premiere was in Tuschinski, which is a big theater in the Netherlands, and that's where it was. And at the same time, there was the ESL Pro Series finals was being played there. The finals live on stage, and was top 4 was coming there. And I knew a guy in the organization, and knew him from playing a lot of Warcraft. And he was like, "Hey, if you want, you can come early and you can see like the round of 3 and round of 4 matches of the EPS." I'm like, "That sounds sick. Like I want to go." So I convinced my mom to come with me. Like me and my mom, we go to Amsterdam together. We go into the theater, and like we get upstairs in like a little back room where there's 4 PCs and they're playing, and like Grubby walks in, and I was like a big fan, right?
Oh
like
my
a
God.
big fan. And he comes over and introduces him. I'm Grubby. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Kevin." He's like, you're Training Orc, right? You're last in the amateur series." I was like, yeah, that's me. I was like, I was like 14 or 13, I think. And then like I watched that, and we watched the movie, and I think at that point after that, like I was allowed to play more and stuff, because my mom realized that most people there were pretty normal. Like she spoke a bit with the other guys. I'm not sure if you ever met Sushi Licious. He used to be an old
No.
Warcraft 3 player turned StarCraft 2. I think SRS Razor Sushi, like a Dutch player. My mom spoke a bit with him and with some other like guys, and I was like, these guys seem pretty normal. They're just like, it's like their hobby, they just play it for fun, and like they didn't smell bad. Like I think we got kind of lucky,
Yeah.
There's like the Dutch scene as normal. It's like the Kevin was there as well, who Kevin's always been a chat, so it's like a good crew to get introduced to esports, I think. And
Yeah.
that kind of helped for me to loosen the rules of how much I was allowed to play, and that kind of stuff. And
You're lucky you didn't take your mom to a BYOC, right? Because it's the BYOC lands where woo.
Would have been over. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. After that, my parents have always been very supportive of me and everything. But after that, like they didn't encourage like, "Oh, go play more," but it was like like they become more interested in the competitive aspect as well, and they found the competition fun to watch. They never really got big into Warcraft 3, but once StarCraft 2 came out and I actually was becoming quite good, like they started watching the games. And especially my dad, like he knows quite a lot. He has a fair amount of game knowledge.
Awesome. That's so sick. I think that's like this cool change up, and it's also a blast from the past, the old LAN scene where, there's a lot more playing with friends at LAN. I remember playing a ton of 2v2s Warcraft as well as my background, where me and my friend had like very few micro or macro. I didn't really know what micro or macro was, but I just knew he wasn't as good at clicking on the things and stuff. But
Slow.
Yeah,
He's slow in the head.
He's pretty quick, but yeah, definitely did not grind as many games as I did. And we used to just do double Night Elf, double Keeper of the Grove. One of us would bring
Huntress.
a few Glaives, both Huntress. One would bring Glaives, one would build 5 Ancient Protectors.
It's great.
We gank a hero, then we pull back, drink our clarities, gank the other hero creeping, and then we just all in one guy's base. And like that was what we did every game for hundreds and hundreds of games.
I mean, it was fun though, wasn't it? I have very fond memories of like it was at my friend's house where I'd play. This was to dodge the rule of not being allowed to play more than 45 minutes. I go to my friend's house and we play Warcraft 3 for 3 hours straight. My parents never caught on to that. And we just like play, like we'd be in the same room and just like build shamans and witch doctors, what he did, and I just built fiends. and that's it. Like
Hells yeah,
no
man.
strategy whatsoever. Like we'd lose if they get air because I always forgot to research web. Basically, yeah, we
Hey
had a
man,
great time.
you got healing wards, you got stasis traps, you got bloodlust. You're good, man.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, that's so cool. So you obviously got into things right from the beginning then with SC2 coming over from a pro scene. You kind of worked up over the years. I mean, it's been 10 years now, dude, of almost just under of playing StarCraft 2, right? You're one of these pro gamers who's been around. You've been on big journeys and adventures. Obviously, you've had highs, you've had lows. What was the biggest win for you? Was it GPL? Was that the big? Because I think that was before the Home Story Cup win. Was that
Yeah,
kind of like the? Is that the peak memory? If you think of like one time kind of getting that victory in a big finals or in a tournament, was there
it
a
was
more
very
meaningful
fun.
one?
Like a home story also was very fun to me, but it felt home story feels different, right? Because the achievement feels like the atmosphere is more, what
It's
would you
it's
call it,
it's
more
it's a
casual, I
it's a
guess. Like
community thing, right? It's like
yeah, so
community at the core. Even though it's big
so
money and big pros, it's like
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
different feeling.
and it's really competitive. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's like there the respect from the other players when you win feels different. It's like, who
Mm.
cares? We're all here to have fun, or like we're all here to have a drink. But at GPL, it felt like I don't know. It felt like a different thing, basically. Also, I don't know. I don't know how to explain, but Home Story Cup, I would have been happy whether I had won or lost.
Yeah.
On GPL, I would have been heartbroken if I had lost. But it's weird at Home Story, I think, because I really want to win it, and I'm very competitive, and I'm sad when I lose. But the win didn't feel as high. Like I was extremely happy, but maybe also because it was my second one. Like the GPL one for me was, I don't know, it felt very impactful for me.
That's that breakthrough moment which so many pros dream of. I remember being so happy for you, seeing you take that out. I mean, you got your first Chinese nickname that event as well, Flaming Lips.
It's actually Blazing Lips, I think.
Oh, Blazing Lips. Okay.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we,
I
we all,
think that we got killed in translation a bit there, but I think it's
GG.
Red Blazing Lips actually.
Ah, damn.
Yeah. I've
We've
been
there we go.
Someone's been uploading my YouTube videos on the Chinese Bila Bila,
Oh yeah.
and I'm getting a lot of emails now from Chinese people, and they all call me Red Blazing Lips. So I think it's Blazing Lips.
That's awesome. I mean, that's such a big moment, right? That every player dreams of. But StarCraft is one of the most infinitely hard games to stay at the top, as well as you've always got natural ups and downs. So, I mean, that was the peak moment. Do you feel like you did you keep practicing as hard after that? Were you more motivated? Like, what was
I
the
didn't know what
follow
to do
up?
anymore. I
Yeah,
was kind of done. Yeah.
really?
I went on a holiday for 10 days afterwards.
Oh yeah, I remember
Uh,
they tried to pay you in cash, right? And then you were going to Thailand. I remember you were
yeah, I
like,
was going to
you're like,
Thailand.
I'm
Yeah, I
not
was
taking
kind
$20,000 in my suitcase to
yeah.
Thailand.
I gotta go. Yeah. I was like, I went on a 10-day holiday. And then I came back, and I didn't care too much, It's like playing for like $100 online. It's like I just want 16K, like who cares, And then it slowly came back a bit, and but I don't know, it felt weird. Like also because it felt weird to think, oh, this was my peak, because I don't think the people I took out were very good. Like sometimes I think back, it's like I'm pretty sure there's been like Go for StarCraft, which had harder competition than what I went through, But it's weird to think like that, like to kind of downplay yourself. I think my mind was in a very weird place afterwards for like 3 months, where I didn't know whether I was really supposed to be proud or happy, or like what I was going to do next, because it's pretty much what I've been living for a while, like winning something big. And then
Yeah.
I had a very good feeling going to China already as well. Like going to China was absolutely the dumbest thing someone could have done in their life. How I did it, I wasn't qualified. Like I flew there for the offline qualifier on Chinese computer in a Chinese LAN cafe,
Yes,
where
I
there was
remember
no
that.
chairs. All the settings were in Chinese. Like I should have lost it. I played Time in my first match, who wasn't as well known, but he was pretty good already back then. I should have lost against him. Like all my settings were completely ruined. Like I was sitting on a couch next to a guy that was smoking.
Oh my god.
It's like it was super super bad. Maybe I got to play somewhere else in like after a bit, and then I played King Kong in the finals match. I think.
Oh
And then I got really
yeah.
sick as well in China, like extremely sick. Before the round of 8, like I could hardly move. Um, I I was in the booth, like, and they knew I was sick, so I needed a lot of tissues, right? So they gave me like packs and packs of tissues. Like the toilet paper crew right now would be jealous of me if they saw them back then. I had like so many tissues, and like during my games, like my nose would just be constantly running, and I just like do this and throw them in the corner, right? And at the end of the game, there's like a pile of like 50 or 60 of these tissues, and the Chinese girl that was in charge of my booth had to carry them out like this.
Oh my god.
I was so disgusted. That's nasty.
Dude, that's like that talk. Someone in chat actually talk about rising above challenges. I mean, that's exactly it. I couldn't say it better myself. Like this is a special experience when you go to LAN, especially when you've been an online warrior, right? And like, it's always different. But then there's these super trying experiences, getting sick and playing, and when your nose is running, and you're literally taking your hand off your mouse to quickly just kind of go and stop it dripping into your mouth, like that sort of thing. Yeah. You said you got aches and you're feeling like you could barely move the day before and stuff like. You're playing on the Chinese client, different language, sound settings aren't right. You've got a Chinese announcer sometimes in your voice or something. Like this is some really rough shit, right?
At the tournament itself, it was really good. Like the settings and all that. Like we had a guy that took care of everything, and it was very good. You know who actually really helped me that tournament? By the way, I played with your keyboard in the finals.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Oh my god.
I switched keyboard on finals day.
Yeah.
From a Steel Series 6v2 to a Razer Black Widow.
Yeah, it was a
2014 tournament edition.
Yeah.
I'd never played with it. I played one warm-up game with it, and I was like, this is better than my keyboard. Can I borrow it? Then I played with your keyboard.
I've totally forgot about that, man. Holy shit. That's insane. I mean, if the keys are very similar, it makes no difference. But those keys were they were not exactly the same place. They were a little different.
They were exactly the same place.
They were?
Exactly.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. It's not quite as big as playing with a different mouse, but it's still weird, man. Oh my god, that's insane. You see, that's one of these things where I think StarCraft players, we all get too humble. And, you're like, oh, I look at the players, I wasn't the toughest or something. It's like, you played Snoot in the finals, right?
Yeah. Snoot was very good back then.
Dude, Snoot was insanely good back then. This was still peak Snoot 2016, man. He was hitting finals and taking championships like a mother trucker. Who did you play in the semi? I'm trying to remember.
Puck beat Scarlet.
It was Puck. Yeah, Puck beat Scarlet. Puck was insane at that time.
I beat Haas in the round of 8.
Yeah, talk about a PvP gauntlet, mother trucker. That's insane.
I was supposed to play Sioras, but he watched one of my replays the day I was supposed to play, and he got replaced by Haas, which was way harder for me. Like, Sioras was not that great.
He's a young Mongolian player, one of his first LAN tournaments and stuff. He was, GM on career and stuff. He was not a bad player, but definitely much simpler to solve than Haas in PvP.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely would have been a little bit easier. But this was a good story. Poor Sioras. He never meant to. Yeah, that was sad.
Yeah, that was sad. Obviously, things got out of control there. You wanted them to get let into the tournament, but drama aside, that was a huge victory. And I think these adventures like that, where you get through a bracket, you get through all these ordeals, that's something you've got to keep that in the trophy case of your mind. Even if there wasn't, I can't remember if there was a physical trophy or not, but like that's something where it's like that is one of those monumental achievements, right? I think you got to be.
Should we explain the drama real fast? Because
okay, why not?
Basically, what happened? We were sitting in the practice room, and I went to go to the toilet or grab something to eat, and I think M-Lord saw Sioras like sitting at my PC.
Yeah.
And he watched like the first 2 minutes of one of my replays, but me and Sioras had been having a good time, like bantering a bit. And when I would be practicing, he'd like stand close and be like, "Hey, don't look at my screen," like just joking a bit. So his plan was to pull a joke like, "Oh no, I've been caught in the act," like when I came back. So I think I went to the toilet. Like I was gonna be back in 2 minutes, so it would be real stupid to do it during that time,
Yeah.
And then he Marine Lord saw it, and he told me. And as he told me, the Jay, who is the tournament admin, was there as well. And he's like, that's not good. So he went over to him, and and he told like Zeros like well, we're giving you an official warning right now, and like this is very serious, like, you know, don't ever do this again or something like that. I'm not quite sure what was said, but like they took it very serious, and like Jay looked kind of shocked. And then word got to Blizzard.
Yeah, I think it was your manager at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
You were on the team with douchebag
Yeah.
Invasion Esports, who you know gave you guys some money for a while and then disappeared without paying you all like a dickhead.
And then Blizzard basically, like, once Blizzard got a hold of the information, they were like, he needs to go. Like, this is bad for the tournament integrity. And then Blizzard just called him and was like, hey, like, you gotta go. And it was like 5 minutes before we entered the bus. Like, it was really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I remember seeing him. He was so crushed, man. I was talking to him and just saying, look,
16,
nobody.
I think at the time.
Yeah, 16 years old, really nice guy. He used to always be in my chat, always talking to me, always like looking for advice from other players and stuff. He was really motivated, and it's very hard. You know, he's had dramas with like WESG and stuff where, you know, in following years, he was trying to get opportunities, and people would be like, oh, like Mongolia is like not a country, basically. Like in terms of qualifiers, people, he's like, do I play Asia, Southeast Asia, like China? Which qualifier do I play? And you know, these orgs just don't respond to him and stuff. And he's like, guys, like Mongolia is not listed anywhere. Like, can I please? Like, I want to become a pro gamer at StarCraft. I think he's playing Counter-Strike now, if I remember correctly, and trying to get good at that. Cool. But he's had some rough experiences, obviously, just coming from one of these areas of the world that has so little esports presence and has been very ignored. So poor Sioras, it was a rough experience, but. Yeah, I hope he's doing well out there, because it's been a while since I've seen him about. But yeah, that's an epic experience, man. And you came back, you won home story. I mean, you've had ups and downs over the years. That's the high moment. One of the things I always like to ask pros, because I know I had my fair share of them, is what was the lowest moment? Was there a moment where you've ever cried after a loss? Have you ever just been so crushed you just felt like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, Massa, I am Katowice 2016. I lost 3-1. It was the $6,000 match. Zero money for the round of 32.
Oh my god.
6K for round of 16, which wasn't that big a deal, but I practiced a lot for Massa, and I practiced everything he did specifically, map based, and I lost just because I was nervous and I didn't play well. I was like if I could, like, I was so good in practice as well at that point. I was like, if I can't even win after practicing this much specifically for one opponent, like, what's the point, you know?
Do you remember exactly what you did after? Like, did you slam the table? Were you angry? Did you cry? Did you go back to your room?
I destroyed my, like, I didn't destroy it, but I smacked so hard. Like, I'm pretty sure I broke 1 or 2 keys, so I needed to replace it. Like, I absolutely destroyed my keyboard. I remember because I sat next to Firecake, and he did the movement, you know, after I destroyed my keyboard. I was so angry. I straight went back, like, I don't know what I did after it. I just remember right in that, I was like, never again. Like, so done.
That's rough, man.
And actually, I was at GPL as well. Like, I lost to, like, I pretty much lost to, what's he called? I forgot his name now. The
Race?
Chinese Zerg.
Oh, this would be
Iasonu. There we go.
Iasonu, yeah.
Yes, like, I lost to Iasonu in the group stage, and then I played him again, and I really had no hope. And I was like, if I'm not going through this group, I was like Coffee, Iasonu, and Drogo. I was like, if I'm not going to do this group, like, what's the use, you know? And then I managed to win with some luck, I think, and then I won the tournament. But that was like before I won that, like, I don't know, I really wasn't feeling well, like just a mental state. Like, was very bad, not proper competitive. And then afterwards, like I said, I also felt just in a weird place, you know, going from very low to very high, and it felt kind of undeserved. It's like, I don't know.
That's
it's very weird.
Emotional roller coaster, man. I mean, especially that experience with Massa, like you said. I think anyone who's ever competed or done something, you know, performed on a high level, if you practice your ass off and then you execute, especially in something that's competition based, where your opponent can just perform even more brilliantly than you, or there can be some luck, or their strategy counters yours, you learn over the years, I think, to, at least to some extent, be able to shrug your shoulders and say, you know what, I performed well, but it didn't go my way. It is what it is, and you can let it go.
Yeah.
But when you practice your ass off for specific things, are as prepared as you can be, and then you just fail to execute what you know you should be able to execute, there is nothing more crushing and more defeating than that. My worst experiences as a pro gamer were always, you're ahead and you know what to do, and then you just don't do it, and you do something else, or your hands start to fail you, and you start getting excited and panicking and running into choke points with your army. And I actually specifically think of doing this versus Showtime at 2015 Poitiers, and like being way ahead in game 2, and it should have been a 2-0, and even he's like, yeah, you should have 2-0'd me, like, oh, bad luck, man, and stuff. But I just remember being like, I want to kill myself after that. Like, it's just the worst feeling, because you're like, all I needed to do was just take a deep breath and play, not even as well as in practice, just not fuck it up completely, right? And that's the thing where it's a special kind of... Yeah, man. Don't cosplay as a fucking potato in a tournament where $6,000 is on the line,
Yeah.
That's rough, man. So do you remember the process right after that? Did you get mega drunk that night after losing to Massa? Actually, I feel like I think we would have all been getting drunk that tournament, no doubt.
That was the...
I feel like this is when you introduced the Vikings game with King's Cup, actually.
I think so too.
This is this tournament, right? Yeah.
I think that. Yeah, that was a tournament. So I don't think we went overboard, but we had a good night.
My man. But what about like the post process? You're traveling home after that. There's a lot of thoughts running through your head. Do you think, was there ever any tactics you started to develop after hard losses like this, or any moments where these were the catalyst for you saying, okay, this is how I'm going to get better, or this is how I'm going to address that problem? Like, have you ever had a moment, like, do you have a system after a hard loss or any loss where you, a few days later, break down the replays, or you try to, review somehow and think about, this was the big problem. I fell apart under pressure. I need to train myself to stay calm and monitor my breathing, or like is there anything that ever came directly out of these losses, or something that you've evolved to help yourself stay focused on the path?
I guess for me, it's very easy these days to disconnect from losses. Sometimes a bit too easy, in my opinion. I think it's good to be a bit down after losses, but sometimes I feel like it's it's annoying, but not bad enough. I think it's good to be angry after you lose, or like at least upset. And sometimes I don't feel it enough,
Yeah.
Which that worries me more than if it... Like, obviously, it's bad if you become suicidal. Like, that's probably the worst case. But
yeah,
it's also bad if you don't care, And so sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect for me between the performance and the emotion that I feel afterwards, which I haven't quite figured out a way to, to regulate that in its tiniest detail. But I think I do an okay job, like figuring out like where I want to go with my mind after losses or after wins.
Do you often go down the strategy line of like, let's focus on that matchup, let's like break down that situation and understand it better, or do you try to think more about like kind of poise and general mindset with tournaments? Like, have you ever developed any routines like, okay, I always like double check this, I close my eyes, and you'll see like Grubby, for instance, before a stage match would always like close his eyes and review, like he'd look at his notepad first, which he'd have with him, review his notes, then he'd kind of close his eyes and have like a little reset before every map, and you'd even see him do that during pauses and stuff like that.
I think he told me that he'd always visualize what his end army would look like, or how he believed the final situation of the game to look like, and how he would be working towards that with his strategy, something along those lines. I used to be relatively close with Grubby, I think, for a very long time, like from 2011 till 2015. I think we were very close, like basically discussed all strategies together. I stayed at his house for multiple weeks on end, and we practiced a lot, and we didn't talk too much about mindset, but whenever we spoke about it, he always really seemed to have that part down,
Yeah. He was always very organized,
especially at that time. And like I think it's difficult to give advice with that to anyone, because it's a bit like telling someone to hit the gym, that doesn't really work most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Like just eat healthy. It's like it's not advice that usually lands if someone just tells them. Like people kind of need to see, like they need to have some kind of moment. It's like like I need to hit the gym, or like probably would be good if I ate healthier. Like or
Yeah.
staying up till 4 a.m. probably isn't the brightest idea. Like there's a lot of these things which obviously people know, and telling someone doesn't really do anything. So I'm sure he told me over the years many things, but I probably just wasn't listening, or I
Yeah.
was listening but not. I was just that's good advice, and then
You need
in one
to
ear out the
you
other.
yeah, you need to learn yourself, right? And it's like, sometimes someone's like, "Oh, my friend's really bad with this thing with their health, and I just want to teach them and show them how to do it." And they're like, and sometimes they
Right.
ask me and they go, how do you advise I teach this person this stuff? Like, I like the way you coach people in StarCraft. And I'm like, no, you can't. Like, you can't make anybody do anything. Like, if somebody comes to you and asks for advice, you can give advice, right? But if somebody doesn't first seek out knowledge, it falls on deaf ears almost always, right? Like, they don't hear things, right? And it's the same thing where even if someone asks for advice, you can tell them every little minute thing. It's not going to relate to them. It's got to become their own lesson. Like you said, you got to have your own aha moment where you relate it to your own life and you design that change for yourself, right? Where everybody is different and has to find their own path. And there are things you can learn from other people and stuff, but I feel like it's something more where, like you said, you have to see somebody else do it, right? I think one of the best things you can do when you're trying to impart that wisdom or knowledge to someone else to try to help them is you got to try to walk the walk in front of them and make them want to emulate that. And that's usually the best way where people kind of learn from your actions. And I think especially when it comes to StarCraft mindset, it is so hard. Like you said, I like what you said about distancing emotion and how the scariest thing is when you don't care about a loss. I've talked a lot about how I think anger is the most powerful emotion, and you should feel a little riled up after a loss if you're a truly competitive person who wants to improve. But what's so impossibly hard, and the thing which I always struggle to describe to people, is that you want to both keep your ego in check, not get too angry, and be in control of your emotion. But that is completely and oppositely different to shutting your emotion out. And that's something which I think a lot of people struggle with. I know I still struggle with it on a daily basis, especially back as a pro gamer after losses, where you're like, okay, well, me getting angry and punching my keyboard is not helping. And I think the natural inclination for a lot of people is to just shut that emotion out and go, okay, like, let's just not care about it. Let's like parcel it away in a back corner of my brain and not process this thing. But the hardest thing that you have to do, and what I've been trying to get better at in all areas of my life, and I still suck at terribly, is if there's an issue like that, something that I really, is really hard, give myself that moment to just focus on the pain and go, this feels fucking terrible, but let's actually focus on it, think about what this means, accept it for what it is, give my brain a moment to just embrace and understand and accept it, even though that moment of thinking about it, I just fucking threw a game against Hass in a tournament or whatever the thing is, it's uncomfortable to let that just meditate in your mind and sit there. But it's one of the most important things, because if you give yourself that moment to feel the pain and accept it, I feel like that's like the first step to then going, all right, now let's like use that as that competitive fire to like motivate myself to take the next step, to go forward and make sure this shit doesn't happen ever again. And I fix that area in my play. And I mean, it's like this weird line you're towing where you want to care a lot, but you can't let that consume you and get angry. So it's hard.
It's a very specific emotion as well that I don't think everyone gets to experience. Like I'd never really experienced it until I started playing stuff competitive, like played StarCraft at the level that I did. Like I played football before, but I never like sucks if I lost, but my day would never be ruined. Like my schoolwork, well, I honestly couldn't have cared less about that.
Yeah.
Don't actually think it would have been possible to care less than I did. So yeah, it's like for me it was like, I don't know, it's very weird, I think, like how much it can impact you. I just recalled earlier like a loss against Livezerg in Challenger, which I prepared very hard for. I wasn't supposed to win that because Livezerg was a lot better than me, but in my head I was like I prepared so hard, like I did everything I could, and I got crushed, like destroyed.
Oof.
And like everything went wrong, It's like, geez, these guys are so much better. It's like it felt so bad. I just remember after that, I remember just walking outside like aimlessly for like 2-3 hours, like no clue what to do. It's like, it's mad. Like, I don't know. Like these things impact me way more than than anything ever had in my life before. Like, feels weird.
Well, there's a lot of things where you don't lose in life, where you can progress from 5% out of 100% at a thing to 10%. You just
Right.
doubled your improvement. You feel good about that. But in competition by its very nature, especially when it's like, obviously there's people out there, you could start a company, another company outcompetes you, you end up failing. There's competition outside of sports, right? And outside of esports. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a lot of that. It's just when you bring it to a sporting environment, and especially a 1v1 environment, it is so
It's really
direct.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he wins, you lose, or you win, he loses. There is always one person who has to deal with the fact that they failed. Like it's a zero-sum game, right? There's always half of the competitors in a StarCraft match have to feel like they failed. And that's like, you don't get that frequency of failing with anything except 1v1 competition. I feel even in a team sport, it cushions the blow. It's not as personal. It's not all on you. You know, you can focus on, well, if I do better in this 10% here or there, you know, it's like, it's all good. Not that, you know, people still feel it hard, but there's just something there where people get very thrown off because you don't learn how to deal with failure a lot. I mean, it's like I think about like schooling sometimes, right? When you did an assignment and you fucked it up in school, you got a F or you failed or whatever, you know? And that was it. It was very rare you'd have a teacher who's like, no, you need to go do that again. And I remember having a very few teachers throughout my years who were probably the ones I think of the most fond, even though I probably didn't like them. I'm very sure I didn't like them at the time, but they were the ones who would be like, no, you need to go back and do that again. Like, you know, you would fail and then you would have to repeat it and you would have to improve. But I think a lot of things growing up, how often if I failed at something would I get another chance to then improve and get better at that thing and fix my mistakes and like learn how to deal with, okay, I failed, let's improve. Not that many things. I think there's like a lot of paths you can go down in life where you don't have this shoved in your face, this, no, you failed. No, you failed. Repeatedly and as intensely as with something like StarCraft competition where you care about this and you lose that match to LiveZerg and you are confronted with abject failure in the face of immense effort and preparation. And that's a shit feeling.
I think that's the thing, because in school, like, I failed a lot, you know? I wasn't new to failure. I was just new to failure when I put effort in. Because most things in life, at least up until that point for me, whenever I put effort in, I would always succeed at them. I mean, if I put in effort at running, I become quicker.
Yeah.
If I put effort into playing guitar, I become better. If I study more, I become smarter. Like, you don't get dumber after studying, but after playing more StarCraft, you could still lose. Like, two guys who play less than you or who play the same amount as you, or it doesn't matter. Like, it feels like you're getting worse, you know? Your position on the world ranking could decrease, even though you put in a crap ton of effort. That makes no sense.
It's hard,
But
man.
it does, yeah.
I think especially as men, a lot of us grow up, and thankfully I see it generationally less and less for every generation. But I definitely had, you know, a lot of the upbringing of like, as a man, you're not meant to feel your emotions necessarily. You're meant to pretend you don't have emotions or put it away, right? Like, if you ever ask a bro for support, a lot of what we do is like, nah, don't worry about it, man. Like, you know, like you look at how women help each other out when they're like going through some hard shit, and it's like they listen to each other. They're like, yeah, like, you know, express yourself. Let's feel it. There's a lot of like embracing and accepting emotions. And with like men, there's a lot of
solving.
It's either solve or pretend it doesn't exist, which is like a way of pretending it's solved, you know? Like it's like and the thing is with hard emotional losses and stuff, like there's no solving it. All you can do is accept it. So I feel like men have a lot to learn from women about accepting emotions and learning to just like process it, right? I saw a comment in chat from someone who said, yeah, man, Castgrader says, I never understood how to feel after a big failure. And like, this is something I've struggled with all the time as well. And over time I realized it's like, oh, you're just meant to feel it. Like I just need to not fight the fact that I feel like shit. I need to just accept it, give myself some time to feel it and deal with it, and then move on and then work forward. And like the way I reassert control, because I find the scariest thing is if I'm just if I feel helpless, right? That sucks. If I feel like, okay, I just lost, it's the feeling of like I just failed despite the effort. I feel helpless. What can I do better? It's okay, let myself feel that. But then as long as I choose a direction to like put one foot in front of the other, and as long as I'm getting better, it might not solve the big issue and make me win the next tournament game. But like as long as I'm in the right direction, I feel like I still have some measure of control. And I'm sure this is compared to, I'm sure there's some Buddhist monk out there or some guy who's like, you have barely scraped the surface of learning how to deal with your fucking crazy mind. But, you know, for me, it's like, it's already a big step forward in terms of being a little bit less crazy. Just a little bit less crazy every day, and hating myself a little bit less after I screw up. Whether, you know, it used to be tournament games. These times, it's if I start talking about the secret to sex on an IEM broadcast, or I don't know if you saw that. It was just a slip of the tongue. Yeah. So, you know, whatever it is that makes me feel like a complete moron, you know, is giving myself that time. But I think it's something we've largely untapped in StarCraft. You know, we don't have sports psychologists and whole teams and of coaches working on your mindset every day. So it's very much this thing where you as a pro player are dealing with this every day on your own, and just with talking to other pro players and supporting each other and your kind of network of friends and stuff. It's something where I think it's incredibly hard to get your mind in the right place, but it's one of the most important things, which a lot of players I think aren't focusing on nearly enough. I know I didn't nearly enough as a pro player.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult because everyone works kind of different as well, like that. I've noticed myself that if I was at least improving in other things, it feels like I have, you know, not all eggs in one basket. It feels a little bit better to deal with stuff like that. Like before, I would just be playing, right, and I'd lose. It's like I focused 100% of my energy on this, and I still lost. But now it's like I stream a little as well. I make a YouTube video here and there, and like I have some hobbies on the side as well. Like I play guitar now, which is like something you always improve in unless you're real slow in the head. So it's like it feels to me like it's easier to deal with the failures if it's a bit more, like it's less impactful if it's not the only thing you're doing. But I guess if we get too many like balls in the air, eventually a ball will have to fall. You know, you can't juggle forever with so many things. So I guess, you know, dividing attention is good for the mind, but if you divide it too much, like you're not spending enough time on the thing you should be spending time on, that's playing.
So here's my theory on that, and this might hit on part of it, or it could be completely wrong, but I feel like what happens is if you don't have other things that you're focusing on, you become so focused on one thing that you inevitably care about it so much because there's nothing else in your life, right? If you're not going out socializing or playing some sport or working out, that you end up naturally getting too focused on the end result because your identity is so tied up in this.
Tied to it. Sure.
Yeah, and it's like the thing is, trust in the process is this saying a lot of like American football coaches and different coaches around the world have, where they say trust in the process, right? And what this saying refers to is the fact that as long as you put in the work and you focus on the little details in front of you, and it's like putting one foot in front of the other of improve this element of my play, improve this element, you will get better, right? But it won't happen overnight. And sometimes improvement is often, it feels like you're on a plateau in terms of results, even though you're improving those little aspects. And then at a certain point, things will click and you will drastically jump up in performance. And then you will plateau again and you will go flat in performance. And in those flat periods, it's very hard mentally because you go, am I even doing the right things? I'm not seeing an improvement in results. And that's where you've got to remind yourself, trust in the process. But what happens, and this is my theory, this is not from anyone else, but if you just focus on it, it's from my own analogies, my own personal experiences, you inevitably just care about the results. And it becomes so in the front of your eyes, it blinds you to everything else. And you stop being as focused on, no. Like if I just trust in the process and keep putting one foot in front of the other and devoting myself to these little improvements in my game, I will get better. You lose sight of that. And every loss hurts 10 times as much, right? Because you're so focused on it and it's so in front of your face and you can't see the big picture because there is no big picture. All that matters is you need to win your tournament matches. That is your identity, and that your self-worth gets tied up in it. And for me, that happened many times in my career whenever I burnt out and was not living a balanced life. And that's why we've heard pro gamers over the years develop and say, It's a lot of Terran players I joke about. They stop trying as hard, saying I'm not practicing as much, I'm chilling, I'm having fun, I'm partying, and they start having the best results. Not just Terran players, but especially Terran players, but a lot of players have that. I remember players start going to the gym, taking a day or two off each week with zero ladder play, zero practice, not even watching matches, and their performance jumps up, right? And I think it was a side effect is that they've just basically given themselves more things to focus on, and they've kind of managed to unravel their identity from their performance in every single tournament match. One loss isn't the end of the world. Likewise, one victory doesn't suddenly make you a god, where you're like, yeah, I fucking won, It's like, calm down, buddy. There's hundreds more matches to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like a balance there, which it should naturally help you improve, but I mean, it's rough to maintain that balance. So any little tips or tricks or any thought process, like if you're in the booth, if you have a hard map loss, is there anything you tell yourself to try to keep your mind on track? Like any little tactics or strategies for that?
No, not really. Just focus on the breath. That's it. Just count the breath to 10, and then you start again. That's what you do, man.
That's actually
a tune you like.
Yeah.
That's it. You know the strategy you're gonna play. Not much else you can do.
That's it. I love that. No, that's it. Just center yourself, right? Focus on the breathing. I've seen you rocking out in that booth many times, and I love it when I can see Kevin just kind of like, you're loose and you start moving a bit, and I can see you kind of singing along, and I'm like, well, what's he listening to? Oh yeah, there was a fuck in there. It's definitely rap. All right, it's rap today. All right. That's
rap
cool,
is
man.
not the only genre that's allowed to swear.
It is the most common, though.
That's true. But,
all right.
But the words that are most commonly used in rap, you'll never see me mouth those big.
Good man. All right, so let's finish up here. I've already stolen so much of your time. I appreciate you doing it. A couple of very rapid-fire questions where you can answer with one word. When you hear D-bag, which pro gamer's face pops to mind?
No one really. D-bag? I guess Hero Marine a bit. I don't like him very much. He's just online. He's a prick. I think his stream personality is extremely toxic, and his fans are really toxic online. He's a likable guy in real life. I'm not sure why he puts on a weird persona for his stream. It's very dislikable, I think, and his the fan base he collects as a result of it is also very dislikable. I'm really not a fan of it. Especially because he's a very cool dude in real life. Like, it's cool to hang out with. Never quite understood it.
It definitely, I've heard from a few pros, definitely gets a bit disrespectful when you hear him talking about how you could be a 5.2k player and he's not really sure why you're doing the strategy you're doing, over and over again when you matched on ladder. But fair enough. Rapid fire. Next question. Macro god. Who comes to mind?
Cyril.
Who's incredibly sick, but no one knows it yet?
I mean, Clem, but everyone knows. Like,
any real hipster ones? Then someone who's surprised you on the ladder, maybe, and it's like maybe the beginnings of greatness, but like they're still very far away.
Very far away.
Well, I mean, like they're on the edge of your MMR, right? Like you don't match that much, kind of thing. Any people who've had like a glimpse of brilliance?
No.
Nope. Clem's the next one. I think a lot of us have our eye on.
Maybe Zaun, but he's also. It's difficult. I can't judge him, but he plays well when I see him play. It's interesting strategies. But I think Clem is ridiculous right now. Actually ridiculous.
Dude, his micro is out of this world.
Nah, everything. Macro. He's genius when it comes to strategies as well. Like he really he knows a lot of theory, I think.
His variety of builds is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, every game is a different build, but you never get the feeling like, oh, he's executing this 10% worse because he hasn't practiced it as much. It's like he actually has a crazy range of builds. I think he has like 9 different TVT openings that he's expert at. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, he's got so many variations. It's crazy.
That kid is crazy. Absolutely insane. He reminds me, opening-wise, sometimes a bit of special. I think 2-3 months ago, that wasn't the case. Like, he was, especially in TVP, he was very one-sided, but now he's so wild. He's very fast. He's I actually think he's very, very, very good. And we have a good map pool now for Terran. I think he's going to be real disappointed that Dallas got cancelled today. So that's,
it got pushed back
to
August. Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, for this map pool, that's probably the end of this map pool now. I'm not sure how long this map pool will be around, but this map pool is good for Terran. And I think if you face Clem on this map pool, I mean, I don't really know who would stop him.
All right, final question. I guess this one is a bit hard to rapid fire, but I realized I didn't ask it and I really wanted to. What's the biggest matchup block? It could be a strategy block. Could be like, I just can't beat mech. PVZ is unbeatable against Hydra Bane. Over the history of your StarCraft career, is there one that jumps out where you've just been stuck on a matchup? And how did you get past it? And this will be the last question. I'll let you go after this one.
Swarmhouse Nidus and the Blizzard patch got me past it. I'd never, and even now I still think it's really good, especially on some of the new maps. That strategy to me feels, it's like the concept just doesn't make any sense, 3 units and they pop out anywhere on the map.
Well, they made the Swarm host so cheap, right? And then I remember being so critical because you remember when they were like Stimpack Marines and they just ran around the map. Then they nerfed the move speed off creep, and I was like, I remember being like, okay, I guess this is feasible, even though it's such a cheap unit. 100 minerals, 75 gas of Swarm is very cheap. But the Nidus Worm kind of just gets around it, right? It gets around the thing that is meant to stop the Swarm host. I was kind of thinking, I was like, I wonder if we should do like a dirty patch where they're just like, oh, you just can't put Swarm hosts and Nidus Worms. The babies on their back, they get injured as they go through the tunnel. It's too cramped. Like, it's like you can't put pregnant Swarm hosts in the Nidus Worm. There's some lore explanation. I don't know.
Yeah, like I was like, just give the big middle finger to the lore, man. I don't want these guys going out of Nidus. Like, I give a crap what you guys figure out. Like, just make up a story. Too big for the Nidus. I don't know. It's just, it smells too bad after that. It's so sick. Like, I don't know. It feels absolutely ridiculous. Back then, it felt really ridiculous to play against. Now, sometimes it still feels hopeless, especially if you're a little bit behind. It's like you're just chasing something that isn't there. Like once you hear the noise, it's too late. Like they're out and they're in again. Like it's still really fast in and out. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, thankfully we don't have Zerglings, 50 of them unloading in half a second in your main base anymore. So at least that has been nerfed. It was a big Nidus. Couple of nerfs they put through, which were much needed, and I wish went through faster before BlizzCon, but
perhaps,
yeah, that is the way it is. But yeah, I am continuing to just hope that, and I've been messaging Blizzard and messaging them my videos talking about it and stuff, and opening up discussions and saying, you know what, I want to see more risks, and I want to see more. Let's take out unfun things, add more fun things, and let's be a little bit riskier with balance. I think we've put some cool maps in the pool, and I think it should be really exciting. But this has been a great conversation, so thank you so much for coming on tonight, mate. Are we going to see a lot of your stream over the next couple of weeks in isolation, or?
Oh, stream.
No.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'll be streaming every day.
Every day.
Well, Saturday's my day off. I don't stream there.
All right.
But all other days I stream.
And that's midday CET, right?
Midday CAT till 5 usually, and unless it's on the Sunday, then I start when the EPT Cup starts until I'm out, and maybe a letter after if I'm really feeling it. But I'm never really feeling it, so until I'm out.
Nice.
And also, the boys, my YouTube. This is the real game changer. YouTube.com/Harstem, and there's a new YouTube on the way. YouTube.com/HarstemCasts. I'm
and
sure
there's
an S behind it. I'm gonna be just casting some games on that.
Awesome.
I feel like what YouTube needs is some high-level Protoss casters, and I've upgraded my PC, so now I have good quality as well. I still have no videos there, but soon. It's gonna pop off. Trust me,
dude. I have been recommending your YouTube. Sometimes they're like, "Where can I get Protoss guides?" And I'm like, "Oh, do you follow Harstem?" And then somebody who's like, "What's a Harstem?" And I'm like, "Oh, you've like just started playing this." I'm like, "Go there now." If you're on YouTube, guys, link is down below in the description. It'll also be in the podcast notes, hopefully. I actually haven't been organized with podcast notes, but it is up in podcast form, so check that out. It's also in Twitch chat as well. You guys can see, of course, Harstem's Insta, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channel. All amazing resources for Protoss players. Just a good place to follow. Blazing Lips, not Flaming Lips. Our favorite Dutch
Blazing Lips, I believe.
Red Blazing Lips.
Red Blazing, yeah.
Dude, I'm still so jealous that I don't have a nickname, man. I'm like that guy who's gonna be like, every time I'm in China, I'm like, do you guys maybe want to call me Mr. Porky or something? I'm like, please give me a Chinese nickname, like anything. I'm so jealous, man.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right,
Really
well,
is
thank you.
quite cool.
Thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, big thanks to Team Liquid for picking you up as well. So excited about that announcement recently. Keen to see you guys working together.
Yeah, they're real cool as well. They're really nice. It's great being with them, Pig.
Dude, the dream, man. I remember back in the day, you know, we'd be hitting up some custom games as young pro gamers and be like, wouldn't it be cool to be on Team Liquid? Wouldn't that be the dream? It's finally happened, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It really is.
All right, man. Well, good luck in all your endeavors. I hope to have you back on the show at some point, maybe in a few months' time or later this year, and talk about some more things. Maybe we could do a strategy one time, look through some replays. We'll see how it goes. But thank you very much. Have a good night, and much love for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Nails